morning from the cloudy Copenhagen, and welcome to the training session Energy Efficiency eTraining to Mozambique, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. My name is Begonia, and I'm working as a research assistant at the Copenhagen Center, and I will be the moderator for today's training session. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our training. This training session is going to be about 90 minutes, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until the end or want to get back to our presentations, all the materials and recording of the whole training session will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many other webinars there and information. Have a look. I will give you some information in some minutes. Before we start discussing about today's training session, I would like to inform our attendees that we comply with the General Data Protection Act, also known as GDPR. This means that your personal data, such as name, email, workplace, is safely processed and stored, and all of your rights pursuant to the GDPR are respected. You have full access to the data being processed about you, and at any time, you can request that inaccurate data be deleted or rectified. For access or further information, please contact with the people that are presented here. A few things about the Copenhagen Center. The Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The Center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. Now, I would like to briefly introduce the speakers of today's training session. Rahul is a senior expert on energy efficiency, and at UNEP DTU Partnership, he focuses on the analysis of policy issues, conducts qualitative and quantitative studies, providing technical advice and other direct support associated with energy efficiency in countries and cities. Jorge Rogat works as a senior economist at UNEP DTU, and he has an experience of more than 80 years implementing projects in developing countries. Xianli, she works as a senior economist, and her work at UNEP DTU is focused on designing and enabling policies and programs for energy efficiency improvement and climate change mitigation. Finally, I would like to inform that you can send us your questions during the presentations, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. And please, don't forget to mention the name of the panelist that the question is for. Also, I would like to mention that we will have around 10-15 minutes to clarify any doubt that you might have regarding the previous training session that took place on the 12th of November. But before I will give the floor to Rahul, I would like to introduce a poll with some questions in order to have a better overview on energy efficiency issues. So the first question is as follows. Are you aware of how to conduct energy efficiency strategy planning? Yes or no? And I will give some seconds so you all can reply. I will really encourage to contribute. Thank you. Okay, we have received a 73% of responses as yes and 27% as responses with a no. Now, the second question I would like to share with you. Do you take up energy efficiency strategy planning as part of energy efficiency programs, projects, implementation activities? Also with the same two responses, yes or no. And I'm going to give as well a couple of seconds. The last question is as follows. Does your organization entity have suitable expertise to prepare an energy efficiency strategy plan? With two responses. Yes, we do, or no, we take external support. Okay, for this question, we have received a 56% responses as yes, we do, and a 44 responses as no, we take external support. Thank you so much for your contribution to this poll. And now I would like to give the floor to our first panelist of today's training session, Rahul.
Good morning, everyone. I am Rahul Raju Dusa. Welcome back to the Energy Efficiency Training Program. We commenced Module 1 of the training program, where we learned about the energy efficiency, its features, benefits, opportunities. In addition, we also looked into some of the important aspects of energy efficiency integration with energy access, and also had a clear understanding on stark differences between energy efficiency and renewable energy. And then later my colleague Xianli presented the main types of energy efficiency policies and measures with some examples related to regulation, standards, labeling, financial incentives, etc. So today I will be presenting on energy efficiency and strategic planning, part one. My colleagues Jorge and Xianli will be presenting part two. There are other sessions listed here, which I will take up on the mentioned dates. Most of the queries and your information required for energy efficiency should be addressed during all these sessions. And I hope you may also plan your questions in line with the topics here. Again, I understand that there are participants from different professional backgrounds, so the content is appropriately designed. Should it be too simple or too complex, please do write to me, email me for specific queries, feedback, which should actually help me in tailoring or customizing the upcoming presentations as per your needs. In addition to the emails, please note that all your questions that you have been posted to me during the sessions are being collected. So I'll try to address those questions to be answered directly through via email or during the session or post session. So energy efficiency strategy planning. This session would be mostly suitable for individual applications and also relatively large scale municipal level projects. So references, however, will be made broadly on both the scenarios wherever possible. The participants will be able to relate to the individual needs also. More information on localized solutions will also be discussed in our subsequent sessions mentioned in the training program agenda. Often we do see that governments around the world are using different terms for actions developed to achieve their goals. These are normally covered in strategic documents composed of, let's say, a vision, you have a strategic plan, roadmap, and action plan. So it is important for us to understand the differences between each of them and how each of these should address different aspects. I will hence briefly state the definitions, differences between what a vision is, what a strategic plan could be, a roadmap, and an action plan is before we move into the details of the today's topic, that is energy efficiency and strategic planning. So, a vision is a description of outcomes that an individual entity, the municipality, or the government will strive to achieve. Uh, in simpler terms, I'll give you an example. It's basically, let's say, with respect to energy efficiency, this typically refers to the outlook on how much energy and carbon emissions they aim to reduce. So this is a vision. So a strategic plan, it's basically a document that is used to communicate their goals and how they achieve these goals. It can be used to create consensus among different stakeholders, secure resources, and hold relevant organizations accountable for achieving these goals. In this way, it is important that the energy system and its potential efficiency is included in the strategy from an early stage. A roadmap generally covers a time frame of a decade or longer to achieve certain objectives. To address in terms of energy efficiency aspects, the roadmap should make a distinction between the various sectors, including potential synergies among them. And then we have action plan, which actually addresses the schedule of actions to be taken to achieve certain goals. Again, for example, many of you are aware of that in recent years, many countries and local governments have issued their climate action plans. It's something like this. They have a defined time frame that they would achieve certain level of, let's say, efficiencies or mitigating carbon dioxide emissions with reference to certain time within a duration. So yes, it is important that these plans set clear and quantifiable actions to reduce energy use. Benefits. Strategic energy efficiency planning is necessary and beneficial for multiple reasons. It engages various stakeholders and raises awareness. on energy efficiency, creates a common understanding on energy efficiency actions. It creates certainty and enables long-term investments. So, is it all some theory or does this really work? Could be a question. Well, results have been phenomenal for several governments, municipalities, and even individual entities who have prepared and followed energy efficiency strategic plan. I'm sure looking into the polls results, most of you are already aware of it and have been implementing. And yes, so you might be reaping all the benefits by going through this process. Of the many available examples, I have illustrated one here. I mean, there's Ireland who has set up a target to improve energy efficiency of its public sector by 33% from the 2009 basis by 2020. They have implemented one of the key measures on public sector energy efficiency strategy in 2017. And by 2018, I think the country's public sector has already improved about 27% uh, from 2009 levels. And yes, it has achieved about 1.3 billion euros worth energy savings and almost 4.6 million tons of carbon dioxide emission reduction since 2009. So to initiate strategic planning, each of these factors here have their individual's role to play. First, obviously, is the team. It's about who develops the strategy. Do we have the right mix of expertise in the team? Often you find many energy efficiency projects, though they sound great on paper and for promotion, showcasing development actions, they unfortunately at times have not so great performance due to the failure of meeting certain requirements in the ground. So we need to take all these things into consideration. Let's say, for an example, if I have to build a strategy plan on building energy efficiency improvements for building sector, the team should have related experts who make sure that the plan is steered in the right path. One of the first-hand examples I can share you is on energy efficiency program in rural agricultural pump sets. So you have a team of different experts. It could be from energy, statistics, finance, economics, markets, business models, everyone. They sit together with the policymakers, crunch some numbers, some data from of the past survey reports and census, and then they execute a plan. But when, let's say, the technicians or the field agents or the energy auditors or experts who actually go onto the field for the implementation part of the whatever plan we have defined, uh, during the interaction with the farmers or understanding their usage patterns, the pumping system performances, the pipeline networks, etc. Several notes, the ground level factors generally do not be are not in line with the plan's assumptions, and thus leading to not so successful programs. Uh, the outcome could have been different if the team comprised of relevant farmer representatives, for energy experts who are actually aware of ground level realities under this program, where energy efficiency initiatives are there for rural agricultural pump sets. So stakeholders, it is important to know which departments, which different bodies of a company, the municipality or the state you may have to engage with, and also to whom this plan, when executed, will be impacting or benefiting. Again, example, something as simple as energy efficiency capacity building program. If I am targeting information dissemination for, let's say, or training for schools or children, I would plan in a particular way. If it is for professionals, the approach will be slightly different. The plan and its approach would be different for a diversified group. For example, the ongoing training program now. The approach would be something different when it is targeting only administrative group, or it will again be different if you are targeting a pure core technical group. Expectations. This is quite a tricky area. You try your best to ensure that you understand the expectations of all the stakeholders. For example, you can expect by that the end of the project or a program, there are some X number of inefficient light fittings replaced with the efficient ones, say LEDs. The local government would be expecting to use this project success as a developmental achievement on their actual national plans or local plans. And then you also have these technology suppliers and vendors who would be expecting something, a possible business volumes from this particular project, what you are planning to do. So all these expectations also need to be considered depending on who you are dealing with, who your stakeholders are, while setting up a strategy plan. Time frame, yes, again, within what time you want to prepare the strategy plan, what is the time frame for executing this plan, is it next month or within 6 months, and what is the duration of this plan that you wanted to execute, is it for few months again, or is it for multiple years? Budgeting, it can actually make or break the project or the program. So yes, this is also a key factor that needs to be accounted while you're having a strategy plan done. Anyone obviously would definitely not be happy when they realize halfway into the activity that they are short of funds or are forced to abandon the activity or procure fresh funds. So it's important that you need to be clear with uh, how much you would be requiring, how much of the funds you'll be requiring to spend for all the activities. By now, you have an understanding that on the broad aspects of the strategy plan. So you then will prepare a work plan. Basically, it's a document designed to streamline a project. It is used as a reference for the goal, objectives, tasks, and individual team members who are responsible for each area. In short, it actually micromanages all the factors which we discussed with some more depth. So we would be presenting about 6 steps approach in developing a strategic plan for energy efficiency actions. Step 1 consists of a mapping of existing goals, policies, and measures to make sure that the strategy of energy efficiency actions is aligned with existing policies. Step 2 involves mapping of energy use, that is about identifying how the user uses their energy, in which forms they use their energy, and for what purposes. The user can be an individual building, or it can be an industry, various municipal entities, public institutions, anyone. Step 3 deals with estimating the technical potential for energy efficiency improvements in different energy uses for different user areas, with the aim of creating a strategy. I will be covering these 3 steps in this session. My colleague Jorge and Xianli will be delivering the steps 4, 5, 6 in the following session. Step 1. So, as we know, energy performance is an integrated aspect of operations and investment. We also know that from our last session during that any energy efficiency implementation depends on resource availability. So to make the energy strategies practical and operable, it is key to analyze the framework conditions, especially those related to energy efficiency, low carbon development, and green growth. As presented in the slide here, analysis is required on mapping the existing goals, development strategies, plans and policies. The context setting may be again with respect to national and regional level, municipal level, company or individual organization level, as seen in this slide here. If you observe, under the national category, it could be something like what are the different, you need to map what are the different policies and targets on energy efficiency, what are the different strategies and priorities for national development, are there any regulations, national regulations which can impact or define the roles of municipal governments. Further down, coming down the line, it's for the you need to also be aware of, are there any energy efficiency targets and priorities for the municipal level. You need to have a clear idea of what are the different energy supply and demand uh, data regarding the municipal local level. Further, again, if you are going to an individual context, it is important to understand and know what are the different emission reduction targets or mandatory or voluntary energy efficient improvement targets. And I think lately there is a trend on with many of the organizations and institutions about complying to different ISO certifications. So yes, you need to make sure that your plan also uh, takes these related associated standards and certifications also into picture. Another preparatory piece of work is mapping the stakeholders for energy efficiency as well as their roles and responsibilities in strategic planning process. This can include the technical expert team responsible for the data collection, drafting, and strategic plan. Mapping may also need consultations with stakeholders and final decision makers. Step 2, identifying the type of energy sources available is the primary step to take informed decisions with respect to sustainable energy use. It can also be for competitive economics and long-term trouble-free maintenance and operations. So yes, it is important that you need to know what is the type of energy sources that you have. The decisions again inevitably depend on the factors such as not limited to geography, climatic conditions, political stability, its impact on relevant policies, market maturity of available technologies, type of energy use, the availability of trained professionals to carry out all these activities. For example, I have here an energy mapping profile of a city representing the energy flows from primary energy to final consumption. We will refer to one of the decision dependent factors called technology here, one of the examples I'm taking here. So let's say the industries and commercial buildings are catered by fossil fuel based electrical energy from thermal power plants. So we have coal power plants which consume this coal, generate electricity, and it supplies to the industry and commercial building sectors. Now, with the fast-paced introduction of the renewable energy and other sustainable energy modes of energy, it is expected that there will be change in the dynamics of the energy markets. This will definitely impact different stakeholders. Importantly, the fossil fuel associated entities. It could be imports, exports, upstream and downstream areas. It can also impact the electrical utilities, generation, transmission, and distribution. So yes, if your demand here comes down, then you will have to work on an alternative plan about how you cater, how you handle the supply that is being that you receive from the power plants. How do you do you cater it the additional demand to some other user end areas, or do you ask the power plants to reduce the capacity utilization? So all these decisions have to be made when so all these factors have to be considered when you are preparing your strategy plan. So by now we understand that energy mapping is a holistic approach with the end goal being to define and integrate energy solutions across as many end users as possible. So energy mapping is applicable at different scales again. It can be national, municipal, and even system level. Uh, gives an understanding of the types and the types of energy and the quantum of energy used for different types of end use applications, again based on strategic steps with reference to planning, implementation, operations, and economics of related activities. While some level of mapping is available at national and even municipal level uh, scale with reference to the flow of energy supply and demand, the crux of the challenge lies in understanding this at the facility and system level, especially for the ones who are preparing certain strategy plans for on policy implementations and on a national level or a municipal level programs. It is important for them to understand what is the supply and demand flow of system level or facility level actions categories. The following steps are the recommended steps in energy mapping and approach. These are, yes, these steps also do overlap with the way energy audits are carried out. So you will be seeing something similar aspects in next sessions of energy audit and management also. Step two, under the first category here, generally identifying the high energy intensity facilities through a defined boundary approach is important first. It can be done by an entity for their own building or an industry. Even if it is for a large scale mapping, which involves a group of buildings or a sector of industries at municipal or a higher level, the same approach may have to be followed. That is, you define the boundaries for each facility, assessing their applicability to your activity, and then bundling them together as a larger part of the program. For a given facility, a boundary is actually defined, you can define and fix it. It thereby includes all the energy consumption against total output or reference. It could be material, energy, area, etc. It is important that it gives an idea, records all type of energy going into the boundary and also all types of energy and outputs that are coming out of the boundary. In simpler terms, evaluating again specific energy consumption, which we already learned about in the previous session last week. We briefly touched upon the terms as specific energy consumption in our last session, if you remember. For those who tuned into this training program from today only, the specific energy consumption is basically an indicator which is widely used to compare energy efficiency across plants, buildings, and other entities. So here, if you see, I've just given a simple example. Let's say I'm defining a boundary for a municipal water pumping and distribution station. So when I define a boundary, I fix it, and then I will account for whatever electricity that is going into the boundary, and then whatever water supply you get from the reservoir, and the outputs are generally the water that you are pumping it back to the user in distribution. So this it needs to be fixed. So again, for a building point of view, if you see, I would, once I fix the boundary, I would account for all the electricity that is being consumed from the grid. Whatever gas is being consumed into the boundary, then if in case you have a district cooling or heating system, then here in this case it is district heating system. The hot water, whatever is being consumed into the building. Again, if in case you have any renewable energy sources on rooftop, and in case you pump it back to the grid, what is the amount of electricity that is going back to the grid. So all these inputs and outputs have to be defined. One caution here, at times what happens, you have multiple entities, like for example an industry, and it has a captive power plant, CPPs. When you define the baseline, at times you might consider this as an entire boundary, whereas the energy, you have energy input and material input, energy output and material output. But when after a couple of years, when you actually go move in for the verification phase after the implementation of your energy efficiency measures and all, uh, the owners or the management might by then tend to cut out the boundaries. It may not be they would not stick to the same boundary which they have defined before during the baseline, which generally is not the ideal practice for comparing your achievements later, based on what you have the journey where you have started from regarding the energy efficiency practices. So yes. Step two, again, once you have a boundary in place, it is time to develop a layout. Example here shows the macroscopic and microscopic layout for a multi-specialty hospital building. I'm just giving an example here. Let's say first we split into the systems from in system level, that is electrical systems, the drives, whatever the air conditioning systems are and all, lighting and all. And second level, we go further into component level of individual system. That is, for example, again, under the air conditioning systems, you could have a chiller or an air conditioning unit. You have associated auxiliary pumps. What are the air handling units, cooling towers? So all these have to be taken into account in this process, in this phenomena, the layout. Things should be clear once you have a layout set. Next step is to define the technology used for each components. Example for section-wise technology catalog for ventilation air conditioning systems are given here. So if you have a chiller, is it a vapor compression system or a vapor absorption system? If you have cooling towers, is it electric motor driven fans, that is forced draft or natural draft technologies, something like that. So again, questions you may need to ask yourself here is, what are the types of energy inputs available and where they are used? Are they suitable meters located at required points to measure, record, store the data and make it readily available on energy management systems for result oriented actions? So all these steps need to be taken into account while you are planning, while you're preparing your strategic plan. Further actions could be under the mapping could be categorization of personnel accountable for managing the operations, process, technology, and energy. This data collected can be studied for potential optimization and resources and operations. Often we do come across some successful case studies or estimations on the energy efficiency improvement potential or the energy savings achieved. So how is this generally done? In step 3, we would see about the assessing of energy efficiency potentials. So benchmarks and standards. Well, for any energy efficiency activities to be successful and for any energy saving potential to be estimated, benchmark figures and preset standards, be it at the facility level or equipment level, are essential. These are intended as a reference for the energy user and all other applications, mostly for the stakeholders in relation to existing policies and technologies. For a more detailed schematic approach for decision making in energy efficiency and management, we have energy audits. For any entity to improve their energy quality and optimize energy costs, energy audits is invariably important additional step beyond mapping. I will discuss in detail about energy audit and management in my next presentation, which the dates I have mentioned in the initial slides. So the energy savings estimated or achieved from different energy efficiency measures as an outcome of energy audits or in comparison with the benchmark figures and standards will give an idea on the extent of energy cost reductions. Once you have this in place, you should be set and good to go on the next phase, that is feasibility in terms of monetary actions. You will be introduced to these aspects during the course of the training program in following modules. So I will be coming back for another other topics. Once again, please share your feedback and queries so that I can try customizing my upcoming presentations to your needs. I will now hand over the floor to Jorge, who will be taking up the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rahul, for the presentation, and good morning to everyone once again. As you have noticed, this whole session will be about the strategic plan, energy efficiency strategic plan. And my colleague Rahul has covered the first three steps that should be involved in the development of an energy efficiency strategy plan. I will move on to steps 4 and 5, and my colleague Xianli later on will cover the last step of these six recommended steps in developing an energy efficiency strategy. Let me see. I think the importance of involving all relevant stakeholders has been already pointed out by my colleague Rahul. Step 4 focuses on the prioritization of the energy area or energy areas to be included in the energy efficiency strategic plan. In this context, it is quite important that the area or areas are important for the users, that they consider these areas of importance. But also that area has a potential to meet the energy efficiency target or goals that the corresponding municipality has set. Heating or cooling, maybe street lighting, water provision, retrofitting of buildings by, for instance, improving insulation, so you can get the buildings to be more energy efficient. So whatever the area to be selected or prioritized should be of importance for the users. It is also important that resources that can enable the implementation of the program or project are in place. And when I say resources, I mean both financial and technical. Whenever you are using or introducing a new technology, it is important that you have the technical capacity in place so the new technology, equipment, whatever, can be operated and maintained. Therefore, the prioritization must be done through a systematic and thorough process. I will now move to the suggested methodologies. You may have a number of methodologies to carry on this prioritization process. Some of them are more complicated than others. However, in this training, in this course, we suggest two methodologies, so to speak, which are I would say, the most commonly used for this process. One of them is the cost-benefit analysis, as you may know, and the other one is the multi-criteria analysis. I won't be able to go in detail on each of these methodologies, but there is a huge amount of literature on these two methodologies that can be consulted. Besides, you have the possibility also to use our energy efficiency source book for implementing energy efficiency projects that we have at the center developed. My colleague Xianli will later on show you this source book. So both of these methodologies have, of course, both advantages and disadvantages. However, accuracy of the results will depend on the reliability of the data collected and used. Therefore, it's quite important that this data to be used is accurate. Because they reflect the results of the process will be reflected very much in the data or information that has been used. No matter the methodology used, it is important, as already was mentioned by my colleague Rahul, to involve all relevant stakeholders. And when I say relevant stakeholders, is stakeholders that are directly linked to the area, to the energy area that has been prioritized as part of the projects or interventions that will belong to the long-term energy efficiency strategy of the municipality. So involving all, and I will get back to this later on in the presentation, involving all these stakeholders is very important. Now moving on to one of the methodologies that we are suggesting, the cost-benefit analysis. You may have or you may be familiar with this, which is basically a tool to evaluate in monetary terms benefits against the cost of a given intervention or project. And the rule is normally that whenever benefits are bigger than costs, then the project implementation is justified. Otherwise, it is not. It is important to create a list with all costs and benefits of the intervention or project. From the estimated results, it's important to calculate return on investment and internal rate of return, net present value, and payback period. It is important also to use the same currency for estimations, so you can compare, for instance, apples to apples. There are a lot of steps, as you can see in this session, and equally that equally applies in this cost-benefit analysis. It is quite important when you use the cost-benefit analysis that you establish the framework of the analysis. I mean, here existing plans, municipality plans, development priorities, baseline, which is quite important, as you will see later on, and energy improvement potential also should be identified, as it was mentioned already by my colleague Rahul. The importance of having a baseline is that that gives you the possibility to compare the progress or to monitor the progress of the given project or intervention, to see whether you are making any progress, to see whether you are achieving the target or the goals set by the municipality. The second step, identify the relevant stakeholders. And it has already been mentioned previously, and this is quite important besides the reasons that my colleague Rahul mentioned. It is important because of the ownership of the stakeholders. We have implemented projects in a number of countries in most of the regions, and something that we have learned is that the earlier you involve a stakeholder, the better are the results in terms of having ownership and supporting your project or intervention. So in that context, it's quite important to identify all the stakeholders, provide them with the information that you are collecting from the very beginning, discuss with them the different interventions and options, so that they feel involved and ownership from the very beginning. The third step, calculate cost and benefits. And this across the expected lifespan of the project or program that you have identified. Fourth step, determine the discount rate. And this will express the amount of interest as a percentage of the balance at the end of a given period. So you can see afterward how the results could be affected by using, for instance, different discount rates, which is normally the case. The fifth step is determine the present value. And this is important because this is a measurement of profit that is calculated by subtracting the present values of cash outflows from the present values of cash inflows over a period of time. The sixth step is examine the results and use them as the basis for a decision recommendation. By examining the results, you can compare the different options, the various options that you are taking into consideration. And finally, the seventh step in the cost-benefit analysis is to conduct a sensitivity analysis. The costs, benefits, and risks are normally not known in the beginning. So this allows you the possibility of adapting, changing some of the key parameters of potentially mitigate some of the risks. So as well, as we know, we live under uncertainty, and that applies also to projects, the implementation of projects program. So there are a number of elements of uncertainty that should be factored in, and to the extent possible, see how they can be mitigated. Then the other one that we have suggested is the so-called multi-criteria analysis. So, and it's a similar methodology to the cost-benefit analysis, but though not exactly the same. Similar to the CBU, it has a number of steps. The MCA has, or we are suggesting 8 steps to conduct here, which are of important. Similar to this cost-benefit analysis, you need to establish the decision context. The framework for the analysis, like in the previous cost-benefit analysis. You need to identify the options, as it was mentioned before, because depending on the targets and goals of the municipality set in the energy efficiency planning, you need a number of options in order to be able to achieve this target, reach these goals. You need to establish a criteria for the analysis, and this, just a second here. This is done in a process where you sort of give a criteria to the different options. It could be if your priority is, for instance, decreasing CO2 emissions, or saving energy, or whatever. Increasing employment. Then this will be the criteria that should be given in a waiver, so to speak. So if, for instance, reducing consumption of energy is the most important one in this strategy, then you can give this criteria, say, in a score of maximum. You can use it from 1 to 100. So the one having the most important criteria, you can give the maximum score. Once you have a list of these scores for the criteria, you can weight these scores, combine scores, and weights. So you can get some results on the options that you are considering for the implementation of this project or strategy. Sorry, or program or intervention. In the seventh step, you need to examine the results, like you do in the previous as well. And it is recommended that you do a sensitivity analysis. We have been mentioning the uncertainty that prevails whenever you are implementing a project or developing an energy plan. So you need to take into consideration these aspects, and after sensitivity analysis, we think perhaps what you have said before and see the different scenarios. Moving on to step 5, which is the barrier analysis. As we have said before, stakeholders play an important role. And many times stakeholders are also the ones that mean a barrier to the implementation of a project or to the introduction of a new technology. We suggest here 4 steps for the barrier analysis. The first one is the identification and categorization of the barriers. I mean, as I said, stakeholders may be one of the barriers to the implementation of a project or the introduction of a new technology. But there are also other categories of barriers that need to be taken into consideration in this analysis. The second step is the identification of the reasons behind the existing barriers. Without knowing the reasons of these barriers, you can hardly address them in a proper way. Step 3 is a prioritization of the barrier to be addressed. Now, I mean, there is an element here of say, reality. There are barriers that are more difficult to remove than other barriers. And that's why it's quite important to realize that from the very beginning and make a prioritization as well of the barriers that can be addressed. And conclude that the barriers that you realize are not easy to move or remove, they should not be perhaps addressed, or they should not get the same importance as the barriers that can be addressed. The fourth step is identification and design of policy measures to remove the prioritized barriers. That's why it's important that you identify the barriers that you can really work on and that you can remove, depending on the measures that you are using. As I said, you have a huge number of barriers, which are normally divided into a category, but also under this category, you have subcategories. We have a long list here. I'm not sure you're able to see, but once again, this is included in the source book that we have previously. You have economic and financial, and which is a category. Then you have the subcategory, which is lack, for instance, of budgetary autonomy on a municipal level. It could be high upfront capital expenditure, high cost capital, high interest rate, and so on and so on. So, I mean, under this economic and financial category, you have a number of subcategories that you need also to identify. So you can know how to sort of design the measures in order to remove these categories. You have another category like market structure. For instance, you have few suppliers or a situation of oligopoly of technologies. You may have limited municipal incentives to save energy and try new approaches. You have legal and regulatory barriers. I mean, subsidies, the existence of subsidy to existing technologies. You may have highly controlled regulated markets. You may have political instability in the country, which may also affect the implementation of programs or projects. You have also institutional, inter-organizational, and administrative barriers as a category. It could be, for instance, lack of a design department, either in line ministries or in branch ministries, environmental or any department. You may have lack of training at all levels, particularly of technical in-house competence, and develop energy efficient projects. Another category is awareness, information, and related social powers. It could be asymmetry of information on energy efficiency potential, and that's why it is so important to identify all relevant stakeholders that can either support you or be against you when you are going to implement a new project or a new program. In that context, they will also be informed properly from the very beginning about the benefits and the reasons for the implementation of a new program or a project. So that will raise awareness among them and be a supportive, so to speak, player for the implementation of the project. You have also technological barriers, incompatibility between new and existing technology solutions, higher maintenance requirements, technical performance, risk of the technology, but also unpredictability of performance and respective energy savings. So these are more or less barriers that you need to sort of identify and consider. And for each of the barriers that you have identified, and later on prioritize, you need, of course, to design policy measures to overcome these barriers. For instance, if you are going for financial measures or you want to address financial barriers, you need, of course, to develop or design financial measures. It could be in the form of subsidies, grants and loans, loan guarantees, taxation, and other fiscal benefits. So there are a number of measures that can be designed and used to remove these barriers. It could be also, if you have identified non-financial barriers, then of course you need non-financial measures. And it could be a mandate to provide electricity from energy efficient technologies. For instance, you can set that as a law, as a requirement. You can set minimum energy performance standards and labeling technologies, sustainable public procurement. You can promote research and development. So that there are a number of policies and measures that you can design in order to address the existing barriers. Very often, barriers are not considered or not given the required importance, and these barriers may hinder or make very difficult the success of any project or program. I have now more or less covered briefly, because as I said before, it's quite difficult to get to detail for these steps. But once again, I would like to refer to the source book that we have developed at the Copenhagen Center. I mentioned earlier on the importance of having a baseline. And in this context, the measuring, reporting, and the verification system is quite important. And it has a number of advantages. Because this MRV also requires that you have a baseline, that you have set a baseline before you start implementing a project or a program. So you can show later on the progress of the project that you are implementing. You can show it for financiers, for political, for politics and decision makers. It allows monitoring of implementation progress and impacts associated with the given mitigation or problem, as I said before. there is also in this MRV a reporting component, and as I said, it makes possible to provide information to the corresponding authorities, but also, I mean, regularly provide information to the relevant stakeholders that have been involved in the introduction or implementation of a given program. So in that sense, it's quite important. I won't cover, of course, this in detail here because we will have a new module. I think it's module 5 in the training that will go more in detail to the MRV system that you can set up for the implementation of the project. And finally, it ensures transparency that the results of the program or project being implemented are properly quantified and reported. And as you know, this is nowadays quite important that so can be the case. So you can illustrate what you are achieving in a transparent way, what you are achieving with your project or your interaction. So I think this is more or less what I wanted to say. And once again, I encourage you to consult the source book that we have developed. With this, I hand over to my colleague, Xianli. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks a lot. That's a very interesting presentation. My colleague Rahul and Jorge has explained the different steps from data collection to identify what's the existing policy framework you are facing and what's the starting point and the different energy efficiency opportunities, where they are, and also how to identify the action areas, what's the policies and measures to do through this cost benefit analysis, multi-criteria analysis, and the barrier analysis, so come with some solutions. In this last section, I will talk a little about strategy formulation. Strategy is, in the beginning, is from the business sector. It's basically how do you do it in a strategic way. That means most effectively to hit a target, to achieve it. So for its main purpose is to create a consensus. So it's like a roadmap. Everyone, all the involved stakeholders look at it. So they have a consensus about what to do, what to be achieved, and how to do it. So they all coordinate and make efforts in the same direction. And first, in most cases, this strategy you can see is need a lot of analysis, data collection. So that's why it's often in many cases is drafted. The data collection, analysis, calculation is done by a small group of core experts. But this is really have a mandate from a top level that the government decide or the organization decide to have a strategy. Then they need to review and commenting by the stakeholders. And also in the end, it has to be validation, approval by the relevant government agencies and endorsement. Often you see a strategy, it have a forward by a minister or some high level people. So that is official endorsement of the strategy. And also often a strategy has a launch event to promote raising awareness so that all those affected could be aware of the strategy and clearly what the strategy is about, what to do, they need to do. And often this strategy also followed up with detailed action plan, project, a list of projects to be done or program to be done, so that make sure the targets can be achieved in the strategy. This is many these kind of energy efficiency strategies. Many countries, local governments like states or municipal governments, they are making it. So there's a study about this. What are the key components of successful strategies? First is the leadership. We need energy efficiency, as it lacks visibility, often it's invisible. So, it needs strong leadership from the top level that we really recognize, and it has multiple benefits, a lot of benefits, including low cost and environmental and social benefits. That's why you need the strong leadership from the top level, as this is a priority for the government, for the organization, and also legally for countries. It needs to be legally binding energy saving targets. This make it a very strong commitment. We have to achieve this. Often it has some targets for different actors, like for utilities, for the public sector, for the bigger industries, or for the different appliances, this kind of different targets. And also that need to be financing. Not we have people can have that you can have a very wonderful target, but what's the financial resources that is needed to achieve it? How to get the financing resources to make sure these targets can be achieved? Also, institutional structures need to be in place. Often we know that energy efficiency it involves many different sectors. We do not only need an energy efficiency agency to agree with it. Also, the local governments, the line ministries, different actors should be available or know what exactly they need to do. And of course, this special review per cycles. After a certain period of time of implementation, the situation may change. That's why you need to have this review circle. When you make the strategy, already know, okay, so some situation may not be evolve as we expect, so we need to review after a few years or some time to adjust to make sure the strategy is targets can be achieved with some action adjustment, and also set of energy efficiency programs. Often, what is exactly to be done, the list of actions, list of to be delivered, the projects, programs, and how to deliver this. Often, energy efficiency is a market transformation. That's how to make the market work in your way for energy efficient. Like instead of selling inefficient appliances, the market make it a change. Like the consumers recognize the opt for energy efficiency appliances. The market make that in that way that the sellers sell it, the manufacturer it. So like change how to make sure the market works in the way of supporting the energy efficiency improvement. And of course, in the end, like what Jorge has said, monitoring and verification to make sure there's a reliable data indicate what is working, what's not working. So you have a clear indicator of what's the progress toward achieve the targets set in the strategy. This is an example of the UK strategy, energy efficiency strategy in 2012. You can see what's the contents in it. There's first a minister forward by the minister, and also clarification what's the scope. Then they say what's the opportunities and how to do it. This is you can see also if you are interested, you can also look into the detail what's the such kind of examples. Often like the national strategy. It's not a research report, although we can see in the previous steps, there's a lot of data collection or analysis. That's the backstage analysis. But the strategy often they do not include so much background. More it need to be straightforward. What exactly to do, a brief about the background context and what to do. Then the different sectors, what should be achieved and what exact actions to achieve this. Often there's also a cross-cutting issues for energy efficiency. Like what I mentioned in the last week, there's an issue of governance. who is coordinating energy efficiency different actions, and also the finance. That's also cost cutting. How to make sure these programs, this financing, for both for the public sector, for the private sector, make sure that's financed to do the energy efficiency actions. Often there's also some risk analysis. What are the uncertainties? What are the key factors that may make it difficult to achieve those targets? To, if as possible, mention that in the very beginning in the strategy, so that the government, different actors, pay attention to those issues in the process. Sometimes the strategy also includes some how they come to this strategy, including different stakeholders involved in the process, which are authorities, and in the end, often have a review process. What's the strategy cycle? And that's the strategy of implementation. The making strategy, issue it, launch it is only the first step. So in the strategy implementation, the more important is how to make it implement and deliver the results. So often like this is the steering committee, technical committee that need to be involved. Often they are also kept in place. So do the monitoring regular meeting to assess what's the issues, how to adjustment, do the adjustment. Also to need to the whole process is engaging the stakeholders. That's really important to make sure they understand why this strategy is there and why this is a priority and how their action is related to what is expected for them and why it's relevant and what if there's any issue, what to do. So that kind of stakeholder involvement. And in the end, that's also detailed action plan. Strategy sometimes is very brief, it's more like the outline or map, but the details often lacks the project, the action, annual plan that need to be delivered in detailed action plans, project pipelines. So that's the normal way to have the how this strategy making process ends with a strategy issue to formulate so everyone's aware of it and adjust their action accordingly. Finally, Jorge has mentioned we have this source book on project formuling. That's one module. The first module is about strategic planning. So most of the contents Rahul, Jorge, and I presented in this today are in this module, and also this book. Now the Spanish version is also available. So that's all our publications are available for downloaded online in our KMS. That's also where you can find the recordings of the the training session. So you have a lot of resources. If you are interested, you are most welcome to go to this website or look at this publication for more details. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Xianli, and thank you so much to Rahul and to Jorge for the very interesting presentations. Now I would like to introduce the Q&A session of this current training session, and we have received some interesting questions. The first two questions are addressed to Rahul. Rahul, the first question is as follows. Who are key stakeholders on energy efficiency strategy planning, and how can you align your interests with theirs?
Thank you, Begonia. Who are the key stakeholders on energy efficiency planning, and how can you align your interest with theirs? So again, this is case specific. I am not clear in which context the question is about, but let me take an example on a specific municipal level energy efficiency activity. I hope the participant will be able to relate it. Let's say key stakeholders, at first it can be the governments. At municipal level, the government usually takes the initiative in energy efficiency activities. So they are usually responsible for all the formulation of enabling regulations regarding financial supports and the course, of course, ease of activity movement among relevant ministries and regulators. So the first and the foremost, the key stakeholder would be the government, and then next it's the consumers. Uh, we often say consumers are the king. So basically, for an energy efficiency program to take hold, consumers, whether it's individuals or business or local governments, they need to understand the benefits of efficiency. So yes, consumers also, it is important that these also form a part of your stakeholder group, because it is best through them you will be understanding what are the possible barriers, and how, up to what extent your let's say the information on technicalities of the energy efficiency actions and choices that you decide come from these consumers. Then yes, another important one could be the financial institutions or the funding agencies. Often governments or individuals reach out to these bodies for funds. So without funds and all, without financial support, I don't think anything will be moving at all. So again, talking about the municipality level, utilities are of course the most important the key stakeholders here, uh, because it is if for example you're talking about municipal water pumping and distribution department is trying to do some energy efficiency activities on the water pumping on the network scale, the eventually you will be saving some kind of energy somewhere. These are linked or interlinked with the electrical division. So that way you need to make sure that the related or the primary or the direct stakeholders or the ones who will be involved with are on board. At times, contractors are experts, technical professionals, skilled laborers, depending on what type of activity you are doing. You need to take them also on board for your strategy planning. And yes, if you are targeting some rural and remote areas, at times NGOs also will be very supportive uh, in enabling the dissemination of the technology and capacity building of in these areas where not everyone, I mean, where the things are where areas of where which are very remote. So these are the broadly different key stakeholders which we need to consider while taking up an energy efficiency strategic planning. Regarding the second question, I think how can you align your interest with theirs? This is an interesting one. As long as it is a broader interest we are talking about, things can be generalized. Say something about improving energy efficiency of a locality by a municipality. The moment it goes into a specific interest, then it is case specific. Like for example, something like when you decide a particular activity, something like which technology or which supplier's energy efficient product or equipment has to be installed in this energy efficiency improvement activity. Your interest may be different from other stakeholders for various reasons, but I think if everyone is logical there, then you should have a solution where everyone is aligned to a common interest. Again, in the case of governments, as mentioned during the presentation, if you can spend some time in mapping the existing national strategies, policies, or local strategies and policies, you will have a clear picture on how and where your intended energy efficiency actions can align with the government's activities, government as in the stakeholder. Again, if the municipality intends to have a technology upgradation of say street lighting systems or water pumping distribution networks, have some good energy management systems through digitalization and monitoring demand and supply, then it is good that they align with the national government's possible smart city programs or urban development programs. Again, if it is for consumers, yes, for consumers, then you have to listen to them via feedbacks and data collection. This is the only way we can bridge any possible gaps. So again, for example, if the municipality supplies water to a particular area, when you take a feedback from the person, or you get details on the consumption trends from the buildings and all, you can actually take a call on how much flow is required in a particular area or locality, what is the pressure that can be supplied, is it really sufficient or is it excess. So based on this, you can again prepare your strategy planning in line with the consumer's needs and demands. Financial institutions, again, you have, as a stakeholder, usually they have an agenda, they have a program in line with the agenda that the country, where the countries or the individuals can apply for a financial support and funds under this particular theme or agenda. There are also instruments where the government or the individual approaches these institutions for specific needs. I think Gabriella touched about these in the opening session. Yes, again, it all depends. For example, if you have a stakeholder such as contractors or the technical expertise and all, generally, as at a municipal level, and it is, since it's your activity, the contractors or these third party supporters or the expertise will have to, experts have to be in line with your interests. So it is the other way around. So you don't always have to be in line with some other stakeholders. It is at times the stakeholders also come in line with your interests, because it is their need. So yes, I think that's it from my end. Thank you. So do I have to go to the question too?
Yes, but thank you so much, Rahul, for the very comprehensive response. Yeah, as you can see in the screen, the second question is also addressed to you. And it says if you could kindly give an example on team composition for strategy planning.
Okay. Again, if this is again also a generic way, I would say, we can be a bit more specific, because strategy planning applicable to which, I mean, where exactly you want to apply this strategy for, or for what purpose, or what is the context, that needs to be clear. But okay, let me think about it. It is, yes, let's say for a building purpose, you can have your own commercial building, or a large building complex. So of course, the building management representatives would be forming one as a key representative in the form of a team here. Your team needs to have someone from the management who represents the management, because they are the one who will be taking the final call, go or no go on a specific energy efficiency actions or activities. Then yes, you will be needing relevant experts. Uh, it can be technical or economical, for technical or economical advice. And then you might be having facility management, or the maintenance and operations team representative, because they are the ones who usually gets grease on their hands. They work day in and day out, tuning up the systems and looking after the systems or the components, so that they are up, live and running. So yes, they will be able to give you better insights on the facilities or the building's real-time system behavior. So yes, a representative from maintenance and operations team will be required in the team. Then again, suppliers and technology providers, they need not be directly involved in the team from the initial stages, but when they can come on board when you actually try to decide on what stage you will, when technology when you need a product or equipment that needs to be installed, or because often what happens is you have expertise there, and you can go through some calculations, some assessments. You can come and say that I need some X specification of a particular specification of a material or a machine, but then you have to ensure that this is actually available in the market, because mostly for motors, if you see, there are standard rated motors, kilowatt rating. You cannot come up with your own requirement saying I want some X and Y kilowatt of motor. That should be really available in the market. So that is when the suppliers and the technology providers come into the picture. The team can also have, of course, the administration and the procurement representatives cannot be excluded, because they are the one who were responsible for the budgeting, carrying out necessary paperwork, and giving you proper guidance, and at times even get you, let's say, a better deal on certain negotiations. So yes, this is something that you need to consider. These are the different members who can be form of a team. Again, if you get into the industry sector, apart from all these things, I think you might have to include different departments again: the electrical, the mechanical, civil, process, because often at times, let's say, from the management has learned that some energy efficiency best practices that set up based on a set plan. They would say you reduce the temperature of a certain section from, let's say, 22 degrees to 24 degrees. Everyone is good with it because energy savings are happening and all. But when if you have to again consult with the mechanical guys, wherein how is the change in temperature impacting the capacity utilization of your chillers, or how will it impact your humidity levels inside the air conditioned zones. Process department may have to be consulted, because the will it affect any process conditions, because at times process is somewhat one of the most key aspects, critical aspects, because some you can have certain time, a couple of hours or couple of minutes losses or outages on the process, disturbances in the process of the industry might actually outweigh the savings that you might actually achieve through energy efficiency measures. So yes, these are the different members or the representatives that a team may have to compose of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul. The following questions we have received their address to Jorge and also to Xianli. So, yeah, the first question is for you, Jorge. Does the multi-criteria analysis include the cost-benefit analysis?
Well, actually, no. As I said before, these are two similar but not the same methodologies to help prioritize the areas that should be included in a strategic plan. Actually, the MCA is a methodology that, in a systematic way, identifies the preferred or let's say best options to achieve a specific objective or target set by the municipality. And it does it by using a system in which different options are given numerical scores, as I said, which are later on weighted, and this information will provide you information with which is the preferred or best option. In that way, they identify options because you will have, as I said also earlier, if you have a strategic plan in, say, in the water provision sector, then and the option is have, say, potable water to 100% of the population, you will have, of course, a number of options that will help you to achieve that target in a better or worse way. So what the multi-criteria analysis does, when you have established a criteria, and this, in this case, or example that I'm giving, the criteria was to achieve 100% potable water for the population. Then the scoring, the identified options are evaluated based on the selected criteria, the one I mentioned, just mentioned. And you could give a scores, say, as I said, also 1 to 100, for instance, based on the performance. I mean, how these different options contribute to achieve the target set by the municipality. And then weighting, these scores will provide you, or combining the scores and weights of each option or program. Then they are calculated, and thus getting weighted score on each of the options. The total weighted score of an option or project or program is the sum of its scores for each criterion multiplied by the corresponding weights. All this process, as I said, is a systematic process in order to provide you with a better information or ground for a decision. So they are similar, but they are not the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge, for the clarification. The second question is also for you. Which you think are the energy area sectors having the greatest potential for energy efficiency improvements?
Well, that was a tricky question since, as you may have seen, I'm an economist and not an energy expert. Although I'm trying to get a better understanding of energy because I think it's an extremely interesting and important area. Well, I mean, just from intuition, I can say that, for instance, the building sector, whether you need cooling or you need heating, many old buildings are quite tall and the insulation is quite bad. That is something I have learned living in Nordic countries where insulation, because of the weather, is extremely important. And I see there a huge potential for energy efficiency improvements. I see also a lot of energy efficiency potential in other sectors like transport, for instance, or even water provision, where you have in many systems you have a leakage and the water is not provided in the most optimal way. So actually, I leave that question to the experts, but I mean, based on intuition, that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge. And the last two questions we have received, they are for Xianli. So Xianli, the first question we have for you is as follows. Measurement, reporting, and verification (MRV) is crucial to measure the results. Can we use an independent body to conduct this activity?
Yes, this MRV can be done by an independent body, often in countries like the statistical agency is like the independent body who is collecting data, what is progress, or you can also often when you have that's also depend on which sector. Some sector maybe it's difficult for a private company to do it, but definitely also for independent purpose, transparency purpose, getting some independent third party to do it. Another ministry or another public institution to do it is better than like examine what's the progress. So you avoid the organization who do the implementation itself to say, okay, well, our progress, how much are we successful or not? That can be a good way to have some independency to make sure the data, the MRV is reliable and also everyone can have trust in it.
Thank you so much, Xianli. Another question we have received also for you. What are the key components of a successful energy efficiency strategy?
Yes, thank you, Begonia. I would like to say that yes, every strategy they have to have a very clear target, objective, what need to be achieved. Like what we say in many cases, the objective have to be smart, specific, measurable, ambitious, but also realistic, and also it have to be time bound. So you know for exactly that all those involved need to know by what time what exactly have to be done, and also you have the supportive measures, a clear justification or supporting measures for achieving those targets. Who need to be do what, and that's the clear roles and the responsibilities for all those need to be involved, and also the finance, the resource support. Make sure some resource is allocated. If not, where you can get the resource. So those all those affected or those actors, government agencies, public institution, business, they have the motivation to do it towards contribute to the achievement of the goals. And also there need to be clear review process. So after some time, whether this work, if not ideal enough, you need maybe some adjustment. So all those components need to be in place to make sure the strategy is working, is put into practice in different actors' activities and plans. So that's the most important components for a strategy.
Thank you so much, Xianli, and thank you so much, Jorge and Rahul, for the detailed responses to the questions. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this training session, we wanted to give a space to reply any doubts or any need of clarification regarding the training session that was broadcasted on the 12th of November, but we haven't received any questions. Therefore, I will really encourage if in later or in the future any question or doubt arise regarding this training session on the 12th of November, please contact Rahul or Xianli, and I'm sure they will do their best to reply your doubts. Well, ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of this training session. I would like to say thank you to the panelists for the informative and interesting presentations and to the audience for their active participation. We hope that the presentations will be beneficial for all the stakeholders involved in energy efficiency. And thank you so much for your attention and wish you a good day or night or Copenhagen.